Hello, welcome to Post Colonial Space. I'm Masood Raja. And today, in my series on Palestine, I would like to touch upon a positive subject. Now, those of you who have been following me already know that I have declared pretty openly that as far as my work on Israel-Palestine goes, I will spend most of my energies on highlighting and talking about any kind of atrocities committed by Israeli armed forces or any policies of the State of Israel that isolate and try to obliterate the Palestinian identities, political and individual. And that is my mission. But in this process, when you delve into these things, there is a huge impact of going, through the rabbit hole because things seem so dark and hopeless. But the important thing to remember here is that in this journey into truth, we must also dwell at places, events, activities that give us hope, upon which we can build a larger edifice of peace. So today, I would briefly like to talk about the Harvest Coalition. Now, this is a loose organization of Israeli Jews who came together about 15-20 years ago to protect the Palestinian farmers' interest, especially the olive harvest in the West Bank area. Now, the groups that are part of it are Tayyush, Rabbis for Human Rights, Coalition of Women for Peace, and Combatants for Peace. Now, what was happening and still happens in the West Bank is, as you already know, that settlers keep encroaching into the Palestinian territories. The process is simple. They build an illegal settlement on Palestinian lands, and then the Israeli armed forces sort of give them the protection that they need, and eventually, most of the times, these settlements are regularized and become part of proper State of Israel. And the settler movement is so strong right now in the Israeli right-wing government that there are open calls to building more settlements on Palestinian lands. So the rift starts when the settlers move into Palestinian territories and build their settlements, right? And those settlements are usually built on the agricultural lands. There are instances where whole olive groves are razed and obliterated. So in 2002, Yaakov Manor, who is a prominent leftist activist in Israel, learned about the settler violence against the Palestinian farmers. And what was happening was that at the time of the harvest of olives, the settlers would go and invest the orchards, right? They will surround them, thus denying the Palestinians their right to harvest their crop. And within 2-3 weeks, the crop would rot and cause more misery for Palestinian farmers. So Yaakov Manor starts the Harvest Coalition, gets more volunteers, and what they start doing is they start going to the olive groves during the time of the harvest, because statistically they knew that if there were Jewish citizens, Israeli citizens present on the scene, the settlers were less likely to intrude, and army, whose job it was to protect and never did that, was more responsive. Now, Yaakov Manner was joined by Rabbi Arik Asherman, who is and was an active member of Rabbis for Human Rights. And these groups then come together to form a sort of coalition, which now is called the Harvest Coalition. So they divide the Palestinian lands amongst themselves. Most of the times, the lands that are closer to settlements, they are called the red zone, are more prone to settler violence. So usually, Rabbis for Human Rights take that land, and then Yaakov Manor's group and other groups allocate themselves to different orchards. So they don't just sit there, they actually go and harvest the crops with Palestinian farmers. And in the process, then, what they are able to do is negotiate their plan with the Israeli armed forces, with the Palestinian Authority, and then obviously intervene as best as possible if the settlers come and try to disrupt the process. Now, Yaakov Manor would tell you that so far there have been no prosecution of settlers if they steal the crop from the farmers, instances of which also happen. But by and large, because of their efforts since 2002, the instances of settlers denying the Palestinian farmers their right to harvest their crops have decreased. Similarly, the Israeli Supreme Court also ruled that it was the right of the Palestinians to, collect the fruits of their labor. I mean, in any civilized society, you wouldn't need to go to the Supreme Court to, get that right. But anyway, that's also something positive. So overall, I just wanted to speak about something positive in which the Israelis and Palestinians have come together to build an alliance against the settler violence against the farmers of West Bank. Now, this is important to talk about these things. What I've noticed in the comments on my videos, that people have extreme views. There are people who are okay with children being starved, and then there are people who, make blanket assertions about Jewish people. But my point is that we have to recognize the humanity of Israelis and Palestinians. And then our critique must be focused on the particular actions of Israeli people, but also their government. But in the process, we must remember those decent human beings, the organizations that have looked beyond their what Clifford Geertz would call primordial affiliations and built alliances to protect the lands and lives of those who are considered by their government as a problem or as enemies. There is a message in the work of the Harvest Coalition for the Israeli right wing, the settlers, and the Israeli armed forces. And it's a clear message that when their military and the right wing politicians are defining their nation in aggressive terms, in terms of the power to destroy life, and are increasingly becoming isolated in the world, these groups like Harvest Coalition, whom the Israeli right-wingers call traitors, there have been acts of violence against Rabbi Asherman. Even Yaakov Manor was once attacked, right? These people whom they consider treacherous and traitors are actually the people who tell the world of the humanity of the Israeli people. Their acts prove that not everyone in Israel is bent on destroying life. So these are the people whom we should remember. And these are the people that Israelis should remember and honor because they are an assurance for Israel's future. And they prove to the world the general humanity of Israeli people. Now, there's a wonderful article on one of the magazines from where I got most of my information. I'll post a link to it. It is an Israeli leftist publication, and it would be nice to keep an eye on it because these are the people who even now are reporting while putting themselves in great peril. Because remember, the Israeli state right now isn't just killing the Palestinian children, right? They are also going after anyone within the state of Israel who offers a dissenting voice. And that is also important to remember. So here in today's brief video, just a brief introduction to the Harvest Coalition and how important it is to remember them and their work at this time, right, when things are bleak and dark and where we see no hope of change coming from the right-wing Israeli government. So, my love and prayers and respect to the Harvest Coalition, to people aligned with Yaakov Manor and Rabbi Arik Asherman. We need more people like them in the world so that we can make this world a just and peaceful place. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Take care of each other. Be generous. Be kind. I will now see you next time. Until then, as always, from me to you, peace and love.